right, 23 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Monday morning. It's time for News Bites. This is the segment of the AM Ocala Live program where we read you the news, and we get these from different news agencies like ABC, Reuters, the Associated Press, etc. And when we have that information, we will tell you where we got the story from, and we do that so that you can look it up and look at the details of the story. The whole point of this show is to give you the gist, the thumbnail sketch, if you will, to get to the point of it and move on to the next story. We won't give you much details, and that's why we give you the information so you can look it up for yourself. We usually get between 20 and 25 stories in this segment, and again, if you're a business person and you'd like to sponsor this or any show on WOCA, give us a visit here at WOCA's studios in the Paddock Mall, just outside the food court. Sit across the desk from an account executive, and he or she will tell you what we can do for you so that the two of us can partner and bring some business through your doors. That's the whole idea. All right, first story I have is from Fox News. Democrats sharpened their swords yesterday over the New Jersey bridge scandal, with one state lawmaker suggesting impeachment is an option for Governor Chris Christie, even as other prominent politicos say they were inclined to believe the governor's side of the story. Christie on Thursday apologized for lane closures last fall that snarled traffic on the George Washington Bridge after emails surfaced showing the closures were pushed by his associates as an apparent act of political revenge. The governor said he was embarrassed but insisted he had nothing to do with the incident. The Republican governor, considered a possible 2016 presidential candidate, yesterday earned the benefit of the doubt from some unexpected corners. Former Obama White House advisor David Plouffe, Plouffe, on ABC's This Week said his sense is Christie wouldn't have been so strong in his denials if he knew what was happening. But New Jersey Assemblyman John Wisniewski, chairman of the legislative panel probing the closures, cast doubt on the governor's claims in an interview with Fox News, saying, quote, "It's hard to believe in the middle of a gubernatorial election that the governor did not have a conversation with somebody on his senior staff about a big problem in Fort Lee." Furthermore, Wisniewski charged that Christie created the atmosphere that allowed this to start and to be covered up. Again, a movement to impeach Christie from his job as a governor of New Jersey.
People should stop drinking orange juice because it contains as much sugar as Coca-Cola, the government's leading advisor on obesity has warned, as she calls for a tax on all fruit juice. Professor Susan Jebb said she had given up orange juice and urged others to wean themselves off of it or dilute it. Professor Jebb is in charge of the government's responsibility deal, a series of voluntary pledges by industry aimed at tackling health problems such as obesity and alcohol abuse. This is reported from the Telegraph. My 2 cents, I'm not going to allow the government to tell me that how I can drink my orange juice. No way.
Show me somebody who's obese because of orange juice.
Exactly.
That's what I say. All right. This next story is from CNN. Charles Smith insisted yesterday that the former NBA players who went to North Korea for a basketball diplomacy trip led by Dennis Rodman were not paid by the repressive regime. Here's a quote: "Absolutely not. I think I am astute enough to understand the dynamics, especially collecting monetary dollars from North Korea. No, we did not get paid from North Korea at all," unquote. He made that statement to CNN in a lengthy exclusive interview on the show called New Day Sunday. Smith, who retired from the NBA in 1997 after 9 seasons, said an Irish online betting company and a documentary film crew paid expenses for the ex-players turned hoops ambassadors. However, last month, the Irish company called Paddy Power said it had disassociated itself from Rodman's project after the execution of Kim's uncle and top aide, Jang Song-thaek.
This is from the Florida News Networks. Florida state officials are questioning whether the drop in benefits would have hit the $20 million mark since the release of the informal analyses by a workers' rights group. However, 3 months after the introduction of a system that required applicants to sign up online for unemployment benefits, Florida officials are scrambling and focused on fixing the flawed system before investigating what went wrong. The group, the National Employment Law Project, claims that Florida rolled out its website on October the 15th, a date that coincided with sharp declines in state unemployment claims. The group's analyses focused on a drop in weekly unemployment claims from September through November. The group says typically unemployment claims remain relatively steady. However, the analysis reports that Florida's fell to 13.4% in November. The group's finding reports that if the rate had remained at 17%, Florida would have processed an additional 290,000 weekly claims worth an estimated $20 million in benefits. Senator Bill Nelson, Democrat of Florida, wants an investigation into the system's problems. Governor Rick Scott accused Nelson of politicizing the issue and has said the jobs agency is going to get this fixed.
Next story is from the Associated Press. 9 women in Sweden have successfully received transplanted wombs donated from relatives and will soon try to become pregnant, the doctor in charge of the pioneering project has revealed. The women were born without a uterus or had it removed because of cervical cancer. Most are in their 30s and are part of the first major experiment to test whether it's possible to transplant wombs into women so they can give birth to their own children. Life-saving transplants of organs such as hearts, livers, and kidneys have been done for decades, and doctors are increasingly transplanting hands, faces, and other body parts to improve patients' quality of life. Womb transplants, the first ones intended to be temporary, just to allow childbearing, push that frontier even farther and raise some new concerns. There have been 2 previous attempts to transplant a womb in Turkey and in Saudi Arabia, but both failed to produce babies. Scientists in Britain, Hungary, and the United States and elsewhere are also planning similar operations, but the efforts in Sweden are the most advanced.
The chairman of the Republican Party, Reince Priebus, said yesterday that he questions whether Hillary Clinton is authentic enough to serve the country as president. In an appearance on NBC's Meet the Press, Priebus said he believes Clinton is a political person in reaction to former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates' new memoir, which said that Clinton told President Barack Obama her opposition to the 2007 surge in Iraq was due to the fact that she was running against him in the primary. This is a quote from Priebus. And I think what this country is starving for are real, authentic people that want to serve this country with a pure heart. And when they read these things about Hillary Clinton, when they examine her life, they question it. And I think that this is something that is going to be potentially on the ballot coming in 2016 and surrounds Hillary Clinton wherever she goes, reported by UPI.
And this story from the Associated Press regarding a high court case and abortion clinic protest-free zones. And again, it's from the Associated Press. It goes, Eleanor McCullen clutches a baby's hat, knit in pink and blue, as she patrols a yellow semicircle painted on the sidewalk outside of a Planned Parenthood health clinic on a frigid December morning with snow in the forecast. The painted line marks 35 feet from the clinic's entrance, and that's where the 77-year-old McCullen and all other abortion protesters and supporters must stay under a Massachusetts law that is being challenged at the U.S. Supreme Court as an unconstitutional infringement of free speech. Arguments are set for Wednesday. Outside the line, McCullen and others are free to approach anyone with any message they wish. They risk arrest if they get closer to the door. With her pleasant demeanor and grandmotherly mien, McCullen has become the new face of the decades-old fight between abortion opponents asserting their right to try to change the minds of women seeking abortions and abortion providers claiming that patients should be able to enter their facilities without being impeded or harassed. In 2000, the Supreme Court upheld a different buffer zone in Colorado in a decision that some free speech advocates who also support abortion rights heavily criticized. Noted First Amendment lawyer Floyd Abrams recently called the decision in Hill versus Colorado what may well be the most indefensible First Amendment ruling so far this century.
Hundreds of American families are flocking to Colorado, the first U.S. state to legalize cannabis for recreational use, seeking to use the drug as a miracle cure to treat children suffering from seizure-related conditions like epilepsy. Around 100 families have already become medical refugees in the state, and further 171 are considering moving there in the next few months. This is according to a nonprofit group which is producing a cannabis-derived treatment for sufferers. Colorado officials have now announced they want to spend $7 million on grants to scientists to establish whether children could benefit from such treatments, or rather they would suffer long-term damaging side effects, reported by the Telegraph.
Earlier this morning, you might have heard us talking about an earthquake that hit outside of Puerto Rico. At that time, when we had that news, we didn't have any reports of damage. I've been trying to see if I could find some updated reports, and I found one just about a minute ago. And it does indicate some damage. And let me just read you the story. It comes from the Associated Press. A strong earthquake out to sea shook Puerto Rico early Monday this morning, causing minor damage in some places. Some people reported items falling in their home, and dozens said they felt buildings sway in the capital of San Juan, about 61 miles from the earthquake's epicenter. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake had a preliminary magnitude of 6.4 and struck just after midnight, about 35 miles north of Hatillo. It said the earthquake occurred 17 miles deep in the earth. Puerto Rico's Emergency Management Agency said there was no tsunami warning and that no injuries had been reported. Earthquakes of similar magnitude have struck near Puerto Rico in recent years, including a 5.4 magnitude one that shook the U.S. territory in March of 2011, and another one of the same magnitude that struck on Christmas Eve in 2010.
Syria has become a major amphetamines exporter and consumer as the trauma of the country's brutal civil war fuels demand, and the breakdown in order creates opportunity for producers. Drug experts, traders, and local activists say Syrian production, the most popular of the stimulants, known by its former brand name Captagon, accelerated in 2013, outpacing production in other countries in the region, such as Lebanon. Reports of seizures and interviews with people connected to the trade suggests that it generates hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenues in Syria, potentially providing funding for weapons, while the drug itself helps combatants dig in for long, grueling battles, reported by CBS News.
In this story from the Reuters news agency, hundreds of thousands of visitors are expected to flock to the area around East Rutherford, New Jersey, for a week-long build-up parties in the game. For the week-long build-up of parties and the game. I guess the Super Bowl game, that would be. Demand for prostitutes surges ahead of the Super Bowl, and officials warn trafficking gangs are likely to cash in on the influx of football fans, forcing people they have often bought into the country. Boy, this is poorly written. Should be brought into the country illegally to work in the sex trade. New Jersey's ports, freeways, and major airports make it a destination state for human trafficking, according to Melanie Gorlick of the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking. Poorly written article. Just the thumbnail sketch of that is the state of New Jersey is trying to crack down on sex trafficking ahead of the Super Bowl.
FNN is reporting that a firefighter is accused in multiple date rape allegations from Deltona, Florida. Authorities in Volusia County say a 32-year-old Deltona man already in jail on charges of date rape is facing additional charges. Investigators say more women have come forward to report that Terry Freeman had done the same thing to them. The allegations come after reports of Freeman's initial arrest. In addition to the new cases, Volusia County law enforcement officials confirmed that an investigation into a sexual assault allegation against Freeman from 2011 has been reopened. Sheriff's investigators add there may be additional victims who haven't yet come forward. Freeman was initially arrested on December the 31st, 2013, less than a week after a 25-year-old Central Florida woman accused him of sexually assaulting her during a date. Authorities say word of Freeman's arrest caused at least 3 more victims to come forward with similar stories. They met Freeman for a date, and then they were being sexually assaulted by force. This past Thursday, sheriff's investigators filed charges on 2 of those cases. The third is remaining under investigation. Authorities say that while Freeman had only been charged in 3 cases so far, 5 women have told them that they accused him of rape. Deputies repeated their concerns that there may be other victims who have yet to step forward. Freeman has been placed on leave of absence at his job with the Deltona Fire Department.
The next story is from the Associated Press. An elderly Detroit man returns to court this morning to face a murder charge in the slaying of a woman whose remains were found in his bathtub. Alphonso Jackson's jury trial is scheduled to start today in Wayne County Circuit Court. Jackson is also charged with concealing the death of an individual and tampering with evidence. He was arrested on May 3rd of last year after police followed a trail of blood from a sidewalk to his east side apartment where the unidentified remains were found. Remains also were found near a burned out house. Jackson uses a wheelchair. Police arrested him in his kitchen after following the blood trail to his apartment. He was 72 years old at the time of his arrest.
Details of the Israeli government's plan to invest billions of dollars over the next 2 decades to bolster the Jewish identity of diaspora Jews have been revealed to the Jerusalem Post by senior officials. In Israel, we typically view the world as a source of aliyah, which is translated to mean immigration, and a big fat wallet, and that's got to change. Jerusalem and Diaspora Affairs Minister Naftali Bennett said last year when the plan was first unveiled. The effort represents Israel's new approach to the diaspora, announced at a gathering of government officials and diaspora leaders in Jerusalem this past November. The initiative is a first in that Israel intends to formulate and fund programs collaboratively with Jewish communities abroad, reported by the Jerusalem Post.
And this next story from the Las Vegas Sun. Former Defense Secretary Robert Gates says he does not regret anything he wrote in his controversial new book and calls the memoir an honest account. In the book called Duty, Memoirs of a Secretary of War, the former Pentagon chief under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama raises questions about Obama's war leadership and harshly criticizes Vice President Joe Biden. Gates told CBS News' Sunday morning program yesterday that people credited him with being blunt and candid while he was in the cabinet, and that I could hardly be any less in writing a book. Gates says how some are looking at the book reflecting the country's polarized political process. He says he didn't think that waiting until 2017 after the next presidential election to weigh in on important issues made any sense. And that was from the Las Vegas Sun.
Controversy over CityPay is likely to be reignited this week when the major U.S. banks, including J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs, release their results for 2013. The publication of the profitability of banks will clear the way for their staff to be told the size of their annual bonuses and signal a round of job moves around the final sector, as well as a wave of outcry about the payouts for thousands of staff in London. J.P. Morgan, which has been hit by fines of almost $30 billion in the last 3 years, kicks off the reporting session tomorrow, along with Wells Fargo and Company, and is followed by Bank of America, which bought Merrill Lynch during the 2008 financial crises, Goldman Sachs and Citigroup on Thursday, and Goldman's arch-rival Morgan Stanley on Friday, reported by The Guardian.
And the next story is from ABC News. Tyson Foods is recalling nearly 34,000 pounds of mechanically separated chicken products that may be contaminated with a strain of salmonella. The U.S. Department of Agriculture said in a news release the product was not sold in retail stores. It was produced on October 11th and shipped nationwide for institutional use, though. The chicken has been linked to illnesses in a Tennessee correctional facility where 7 people got sick and 2 more were hospitalized. Food containing salmonella can cause salmonellosis, one of the most common bacterial foodborne illnesses. The most common symptoms are diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and fever within 12 to 72 hours after eating the contaminated product.
Although in recent decades women have made historic advances in nearly all areas of American public life, a staggering number of women across the country are still teetering on the verge of poverty and economic disaster. This is according to a new report that was released yesterday. The report, co-authored by NBC News special anchor Maria Shriver and the Center for American Progress, takes a wide-angle snapshot of a national economic crisis seen through the eyes of women. The key findings paint a portrait of an estimated 42 million women and 28 million dependent children saddled with financial hardship. This is a quote from Shriver. These are not women who are wondering if they can have it all. These are women who are already doing it all, working hard, providing, parenting, and caregiving. They're doing it all, yet they and their families can't prosper, and that's weighing the U.S. economy down, repeated by MSNBC.
The next story is from the Associated Press. The British government has pledged that it will assume all UK government debt in the event that Scotland votes for independence, a move meant to reassure markets ahead of what is likely to be a heated campaign. The Treasury issued a paper this morning declaring that the continuing UK government will honor the contractual terms of the debt if Scotland votes to break away in a September 18th referendum. And independent Scotland would still need to pay its fair and proportionate share of the UK's outstanding stock of debt, according to the Treasury. In the event of independence, the full spectrum of assets and liabilities, past, future, and contingent, will need to be considered in negotiations between the continuing UK and Scottish governments on a case-by-case basis, according to the report. The preemptive statement from the Treasury is intended to provide clarity and keep a lid on borrowing rates by eliminating uncertainty, which may add to the risk premium demanded by investors. That could mean investors ask for higher interest rates on UK government bonds that are often called gifts.
Secretary of State John Kerry said yesterday that he was confident that Syrian opposition groups would show up at peace talks in Switzerland later this month, a key benchmark as the U.S. and allies try to negotiate a transition of power from embattled President Bashar Assad to a new representative government. This is a quote from Kerry. Personally, I'm confident that the Syria opposition will come to Geneva. Kerry said this at a news conference in Paris with his Qatari counterpart, Khalid bin Mohammed Al Attiyah. Kerry said attendance at the talks was a test of credibility of everybody. And then he added, that's why I am confident they will be there, reported by MSNBC.
And this one is from the Las Vegas Sun. Pope Francis named his first batch of cardinals yesterday, choosing 19 men from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and elsewhere, including the developing nations of Haiti and Burkina Faso, in line with his belief that the church must pay more attention to the poor. Francis made the announcement as he spoke from his studio window to a crowd in St. Peter's Square. 16 of the appointees are younger than 80 years old, meaning they are currently eligible to elect the next pope, which is a cardinal's most important task. The ceremony to formally install them as cardinals will be held February 22nd at the Vatican, according to the report from the Las Vegas Sun.
Construction of the largest expansion in the history of Disney's Animal Kingdom began last week with a ceremonial groundbreaking on the new Avatar-inspired land. The addition to the Animal Kingdom is based on the world created by James Cameron in his groundbreaking motion picture. The Avatar-themed attraction will host attractions based on elements of the world named Pandora, created by Cameron and brought to life by the cast of the movie. Disney executives say when the expansion is complete in 2017, guests will encounter the Na'vi. They are the tall, blue-skinned natives of Pandora. Guests will fly with banshees, and guests will see the amazing world of Pandora at night. There are also reports that the park will recreate such mind-staggering elements as the floating mountains of Pandora. Tom Staggs, chairman of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, said Disney's Animal Kingdom is already host to some of the guests' favorite attractions, and this just takes things to the next level, reported by the Florida News Network.
And that's all the time we have for News Bites. We do this each weekday morning. If you want to catch it again, if you're not already familiar with it, and if you were listening for the first time, thank you for doing so. Remember, if you're an advertiser and you'd like to sponsor this or any program on WOCA, give us a call at 732-8000 and find out how we, here at The Source, can send business to you at your business simply by mentioning it in the words that you and your sales executive agree on. Mm-hmm. Choose.
Yeah. Come
into the studio if you'd like to sit with the account executive to find out about advertising. And the location of our studios is easy to find, right in the Paddock Mall on State Road 200. If you go to the mall, go to the food court entrance, and we're right outside of that entrance. Robert, how many stories did we get today?
24.
Not bad, 24.
No.
All right, we'll take a little break, and we'll be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. Aviation officials are investigating the misguided landing of a Southwest jet en route from Chicago to Branson, Missouri, that landed 9 miles away at a smaller airport with shorter runways. No one was hurt, but the plane stopped close to a drop-off. More trouble may be brewing for New Jersey Governor Chris Christie on the heels of the Bridgegate scandal over top aides creating a traffic jam to punish a political rival. Comes word of a federal investigation into his distribution of Hurricane Sandy relief money. Passengers who survived the final voyage of the Costa Concordia cruise ship are marking the second anniversary of its grounding off Tuscany with a candlelight march at the site and a moment of silence in the courtroom where the captain is on trial. Pope Francis called abortion evidence of a throwaway culture that wastes people as well as food. He made his comments in an annual speech on world crises. First Lady Michelle Obama is exuberantly describing her upcoming birthday as 50 and fabulous. People invited to her White House birthday bash are being warned to be ready to dance. This is ABC News.
If you're a homeowner who's faithfully made your mortgage payments, you deserve thanks for doing the right thing.